All right, today we are going to talk about iPhone 7 home button problems. And home button problems means just home button problems. So the clicky part that doesn't work. This is nothing to do with touch ID or fingerprint sensor. So if you have a problem with fingerprint sensor on your iPhone 7, then your best bet is still to go to Apple and get a screen replacement, because the screen replacement comes with a new fingerprint sensor inside the home button programmed to your motherboard. So that means for whatever it is, $149, you can get a brand new fingerprint sensor, brand new home button, brand new screen, and that'll be the quickest path to solve any kind of fingerprint sensor function problems. But what if you have a working fingerprint sensor, your home button is not working? So that is kind of points to this sort of class of problems that all center around the Turtle IC and the Flex. So if you watch videos from China, these guys are calling the Turtle IC U10. I don't like to do that. We got into trouble when we started calling the TriStar chip U2. That's not a very specific name. That's a board position. So I don't call TriStar U2 anymore because we identified the problem on the iPhone 5 where the TriStar chip was in the U2 position. But now the same chip is in lots of different phones and it's in lots of different board positions. So let's get away from identifying chips by their board position on one board and instead call them by the name that the schematic refers to them. So we're going to talk about Turtle IC, which is in the U10 position in the iPhone 7 Plus. So Turtle IC problems come in a couple of different flavors. So I thought that this phone here today, I thought, hey, I'm going to finally get to do a Turtle IC reball or replacement. And then when I looked at it, it turns out that this one actually has a torn flex. But I think we can still solve it by investigating the Turtle IC and the Flex and figuring out where everything goes, so that maybe it's going to be easier to actually solve some of the torn Flex problems by running jumpers under the Turtle IC. So that's our plan for today. I don't know if it's going to work. So let's start by looking at this phone. So this phone is here because it has a functional fingerprint sensor, yet the home button isn't working. So if I push home, nothing happens. This phone is on, so I can still swipe around the screen. It has automatically enabled, I don't know if it was automatic or not, it came like this, my little assistive touch home button, so I can press home, I can get into the phone, and I can even unlock the phone with my fingerprint. So there we can see that fingerprint sensor itself is working, and I just added this fingerprint. I'll delete it before I send it back home. But fingerprint sensor is working, and you can see nothing happens when I press the home button. Home button is not working. So why don't we take a look at this home button area then? Let's take a look at the Flex. I'm going to go ahead and turn this sucker off, and let's see, enlighten me on the new Hydra U2 IC. Yes, exactly. Don't reball the Turtle. Why not? I sure am. All right. Clicky. Yes. Okay. A whole bunch of hellos from chat. And let's turn on the hand camera, which I kind of moved around today. So we'll see what's up with that. Let's disconnect the battery. And I'm going to disconnect the front cam with the professional fingernails. Disconnect the screen itself. So let's take a look at the screen. We'll put this phone away for now. All right, so let's take a look under the microscope at this home button and see what's going on. So let's click over to microscope view. All right, so here we go. Let's look in there. So there, right there in the sort of glass-looking IC is the Turtle IC itself, and you can read its little number AD7149, And you can even go on a hunt to say, well, what the heck is that? What does it do? So let's see if we can find that out. So let's go over here to screen and look that up. So if you just Google around that number, the AD7149, you can get to a similar chip, AD7142, and see what does it do. Programmable controller for capacitance touch sensors. So this is a capacitance, meaning your finger press to ones and zeros converter, blah, 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 blah. And it can be used for making something like a button. So used for cell phones, et cetera, et cetera. And you can read about these. And how do they work? You can go ask an electrical engineer, but what we can kind of gather from in here is that the chip itself receives some input from your finger, and magic happens, and then it's going to output some ones and zeros. And those lines then need to go from the turtle IC through the flex, make it through the connector, make it through the screen, and make it onto the board and follow its way to the chips that are going to process that information. So you've got to have a line then. You've got to have an intact line to gather information from the actual home button capacitance section. And you've got to have everything working inside the good old turtle IC, and you've got to have some output. So that is the fault then. It can't really have anything to do with fingerprint, with Touch ID. This is just capacitance, your finger pressure on the turning into ones and zeros to let the device know exactly how hard you pressed. Okay, so let's go back to our microscope view. So you can kind of see how this thing is organized, that this is a BGA chip that is soldered on a flex, and flexes like to, they're kind of bendy. So here's a little one here. And if this one, I've taken the turtle IC off, and you can see that it is literally sitting on a bunch of pads. And this thing is really flexible. So you can imagine how easy it is to get a cracked joint under one of those guys. Now in the Apple original ones, they are pretty well protected. Where did you go? Come back. There you are, buddy. They're protected with this sort of hot glue, stuff that is overlaid, epoxy or whatever it is. And that's pretty good, but you can really see how something like over tightening these screws, if you really crank down on these screws when you are applying that metal bracket, that you can push into the turtle IC, and he's not going to like that. So it's pretty common to have a fault where you lose home button function that you used to have. Now, why is this a big deal? Because you could just go to Apple and get a screen swap and solve it that way as well. But what if you're on iOS 11 and the phone will no longer boot because it doesn't have a home button attached? So we're kind of leaning in that direction. Maybe that'll go away. But as it is right now, it seems like some iOS 11 devices that are iPhone 7 or 7 Plus will not boot. They'll just sit there on the Apple logo or boot loop if they can't detect a home button. That's going to be a problem if you have then kind of trapped somebody's data in the phone. You're going to need that home button to work in order to get that phone to boot. I don't know what happens if you go to the Apple store with a boot looping phone and say, hey, can you give me a new home button and pair it to the screen? I don't know if they can do that or not. Maybe they say no problem, but this could be a big deal. So that's why we're gonna put some time into it and try to get this one at least back on the road. Okay, so I thought, hey, this is gonna be a good old straight up turtle IC job, and then my hopes were crushed, and I'll show you why. So I came along here, and step one is to, really gently separate the screen from the home button itself. So we'll kind of get that out of the way, and then see if you can see what I saw. Bad news. Dun dun dun. I see a tear. So this is a pretty common problem. It's just a little tiny tear. You got to be so careful with these things. So that little tear has severed some lines. And I think that's pretty common because I sat down to do some of these turtle jobs today, and the other one that I have is also a pretty serious flex tear. So here's another example where it has almost the identical tear. So I think that little tiny tears like this are going to be a big problem. So let's say, all right, well, how can we figure out what the consequence is of that tear? So here's where we're going to start. So this is my eBay button, which you guys might remember, my piece of crap eBay button that swore it was going to work, but of course does not. This eBay button then has, I took the turtle IC off so that I could just kind of map what is required for home button connection between the connector and in here. And actually I'm gonna put this aside. I'm gonna show you a different home button. This one is a native home button from a device that doesn't have a problem with home buttons. This is a working home button. So this working home button should have all of its lines intact. And so here's where we're going to start. What we're going to do is make a map, a diode mode map of this connector. So how are we going to do that? We are going to use the multimeter and we're going to put it in diode mode. And why do we use diode mode all the time? I was thinking about doing a video maybe later on why are we always using diode mode. Diode mode is really useful. It's sort of an inferred resistance of the line. So it can tell you two things. If diode mode is supposed to be X, and when you measure it on your board, you get a number that is lower, that tells you there's a short to ground or a partial short to ground. If you measure in diode mode and you get a number that is higher, that tells you there's an open line. And so it can be really useful to just kind of ask the question on a connector, which one of these guys is not working? So we can kind of do diode mode. But in order to use diode mode, we have to be able to compare to bad to good. So we need to have a good, so we need to make a map. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to start here at the end of the connector, and I'm going to put my red probe on this end, which is ground, and then I can just kind of go down the row, and I can see that here my my meter reads 0, 0, 0, so that is also ground. And then I can start getting numbers. So this is 0.416. This next line is 0.416. That's 0.416. That's 0.68. That's 0.37. That's 0.753. That's 0.645. And then all these three around here that are all the same thing, which I believe are the turtle IC communication lines, are 0.475, and then going up 0.475, 0.484, 0.484, 0.647. Whoa, hey, I got a donation. I got 10 New Zealand dollars. Thank you for Kuru and Fern Limited. That one is 0.757. It also scared the crap out of me. 0.757, 0.753, and back to ground. So if you want, you can write that down, and that's what I did. I wrote it down on a little map where I kind of drew the orientation of my home button. Here's my home button, that's the turtle IC, and this is the connector. If you find the same diagram, I think the guys in China did it this way. But you can just kind of like write down your diode mode readings, and that is something you want to keep. That's super useful, and this is the kind of stuff that you can make a note or upload to ZXW, and then everybody can kind of share that information. So if you compare between my home button and your home button and all around the world home button, we should all have kind of the similar numbers on those values. All right, so the next thing I did was that exact same thing on my eBay home button. Now the eBay home button does not have a fingerprint sensor at all. So I went down and I did the exact same thing in the home button to see which lines were important for home button function, because this thing it had a turtle IC, it looked fairly OEM, but it doesn't seem to have a fingerprint sensor. So a lot of these lines were open line that presumably are the ones that go to the fingerprint sensor. So then I added to my map which ones of these were seemingly not important for home button function. All right, so now we have something to compare to. So now we can go back to the button that we're trying to fix and say, hey, what is the actual problem? So let's do that. So let's go back to the broken button and we can do the same thing. Let's look to see which of these lines, I mean, we know we have a tear, so we know some things are going to come up as open line that are supposed to be connected somewhere. So let's try to figure out what is the actual problem. So let's do that. So we can do the exact same thing. We can go in diode mode, and now we're just looking for a mismatch. So I'm going to go red probe in the top of the connector, and I'm going to go down the road. That's ground, that's normal, that's a match, 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 match to normal, beep. So I got OL down here, OL, and my map says that's supposed to be 0.479. So that tells me that these three here at the very bottom of the connector are broken, and I'm pretty sure that those guys are the turtle IC signaling line. So it makes sense why this thing does not have home button function. Then let's go back up over here. We've got a match, 0.753, match, 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 OL, and it's supposed to be 0.477. So I have two broken lines, this one down here and this little pin right there. So that's my problem. I know that I have those two problems. So how can I fix this? I need those guys in the connector to talk to the line and not be a broken open line. I need them to talk to their line. So now my next question is, well, what are their lines? So let's go back to the eBay button and probe around a little bit. So now I'm going to go to continuity mode and let's look at the eBay button. So the broken lines on our board are this big one down here. So these guys are all the same at the very, very bottom end. Let's try to make that really focused for you guys. All right, and then I can say, hey, step one is I could say, hey, do these match to any of the traces that could potentially be torn? So I'm just in continuity mode listening for a beep. Are you this guy or that guy or any of this? And let's ask another question. Well, are you just ground? The big fat one? How about you? Are you ground? I got $10. Please, bro, help me. I plug in phone. It doesn't turn on. What is it? It's the battery, dude. You gotta plug the battery in. It's not gonna work, noobs. All right, so let's see what's up. So these big fat ones are ground, so that's kind of a drag. And it doesn't look like either of the tiny little ones belong to the trace that I'm looking for. How about the other trace that I'm looking for? Oh, my microscope's falling apart. Fantastic. How about this? How about you? You're the other dude we're looking for that's open line in our bad button. Are you either of these? Nope. Well, who is that? Okay, so that teeny tiny, look how tiny that is. Oh my gosh, it's tiny. Tiny, tiny. This hopefully will help anybody else that's got the same kind of problem. This is baby little trace number 1, and his brother is baby trace number 2. So if those two traces are torn, you are going to get open line on those two pins. But that doesn't help us because we are missing this bottom one and the one next to it. So what we can do is flip over the board and start hunting around. Because remember, our tear looks like this. So let's look back at our board. Our tear is right here in the corner. You can barely even see it. I don't want to mess with it. See, our tear is right there. So it doesn't look like on the top side that our tear really bothered anything at all on the top side, which means that we are concerned about tear on the bottom side. So I filleted down again, and let's look and see what's in there. Oh, that looks like a lot of teeny tiny traces. All right, so what do those guys map to? So this is a little bit of a challenge because I gotta get a probe on either side and be in focus for stream. So let's see. I can see there's three teeny tiny little traces here, and I can see ground on either side of it. All right, so question number 1 is, are either of you guys a match to right there? So that's what I'm trying to probe. So I'm going to kind of stick this like this and touch in there and see if I get a beep, which is really hard to show on stream, especially because I'm kind of creasing this thing. Let's try to get in there, and do I hear a beep? Let's see, are you this one? Are you that one or that one? Oh, there we go, we got a beep. It's this one. Okay, so now, man, that's gonna be hard to sew up. So now we have some information. All right, so now we know that that first little thin line is a match to our relatively big 1, 2, 3 that are missing. And if we continue to do this, we could figure out that the other one that we're missing makes sense. It is one of these other 3 that are right next to it. And I'm not going to mess this up anymore. So how could we get this fixed? We could take our button and we could scrape down and try to do trace repair and knit back together the broken line. So I think this diode mode method of at least telling you what lines you're going after kind of helps you not have to tear up the entire flex trying to sew everything back together. But you can see that this is really, really tedious. So I'm also concerned that, hey, you know, this thing has to bend and click in to work, and it has to also survive future screen replacements, or else, you know, that's really not going to be a good repair. So let's look around a little bit and see if there's any other options for us that we can do. So one option is to do trace repair and make our button work again. But before we do that, let's consider some other kind of jumper solution. All right, so let's see what you guys are. I'm totally missing over here in chat. Touch ID iPhone 7 schematic 43352 to see both the physical line traces in the schematic. Yes. Everybody's not liking. How did you scrape the cable to get at the connectors? Just with a razor. Rich dad, poor dad. What? Okay. What time is it in America? It is 6 o'clock. Okay. So, what about this idea? Let's see if we can stick a probe in our missing line here and rub around under the turtle IC and get a beep. Are any of you guys under turtle IC a match for our missing line? Aha, we found one. All right, so now we know that under the turtle IC, this corner ball right there is a match to our missing line. That's the line that's open line on our bad button. Now what about our other one? So we can stick a probe in our other missing line or open line, and then we can slide over and do the same thing and say, you know, we can probe around. Maybe we could make a jumper to these caps. Any beeps? Anybody? Anybody? And we can probe around here. Aha! So right there, the number 3 down on the edge, that guy is a match to our other open line. So what about this plan? Let's see if we can take the home button, desolder the turtle IC, just to kind of demo how we would go about changing the turtle IC, since a crack under turtle IC is going to be some of these home button not working, but Touch ID is. And then let's see if we can do long jumpers under the turtle IC. We'll put it back on top of these jumpers and then go out to the home button. That will save us from having to do trace repair of these incredibly fine traces. And from experience doing this with the error 53 home buttons, these are a bitch. You really don't want to be doing trace repair on a flex, especially when you have to knit back together traces on either side. So this particular one, we could get away. We could probably get it solved by doing some trace repair on these two broken lines. But they're incredibly close together, and your jumper has to bend when you turn this thing around. So I'd rather have something that was a little bit more robust. So that's why we are going to try to put some jumpers under the turtle IC. Let's see what you guys think about this. Your eyes are really blue today, Jessa. It's because we're under the C. Under the C. All right, so let's see if I can get this existing home button off without doing any more damage, which is kind of tough because it has a tiny little tear, and I don't want that to get worse. I don't want that to get worse. And I also don't want to get a tweezer poke in any of the other lines. So let's see if we can nudge this up. Come on. Get up. Get up. All right, and now I'm going to try to ease that back out. We'll look at our lovely turtle while I try to take out this home button without fucking it up. Gotta be so gentle, so gentle. All right, there he goes. Okay, so this goes up here with his board. All right, so let's look at it. This is the one that we're trying to actually fix now. We'll bring back our microscope view. All right, so here is what we're trying to fix. Trace repair on a flex is like pulling teeth with pliers. Ouch. My home button on my 7 is in glass shards after a drop. That is a lie, because we all know that the iPhone 7 is made of sapphire glass, which is unbreakable, and I know that because that's what Apple told me. So clearly you are lying. All right, so let's see, how are we going to go about getting the turtle IC off? So this will be our kind of general technique for approaching flexes that don't have any kind of a tear, but if you diode mode around, you say, hey, I have a problem in one of the turtle IC joints because of flexion. So let's tape this down so that he doesn't move away. Now you can go by the, Wyman developed a tool specifically for this repair. And we're going to tape that down really gently right on his sore spot so he can't get any worse. All right, something like that. And you can buy the little U10, what do you call it, fingerprint maintenance tool or something like that. I think that is cute. You can go buy that, which uses sort of an iron. I'm too lazy for that, so I'm going to just use regular stuff. So to do this, let's go. First, I'm going to go super low to try to get the epoxy off. So I'm going to go 200 something, kind of hair dryer range heat, and I am first going to try to just get the epoxy off. I really like how you explain everything so great. I really learn a lot, Jessa. Thank you, says Hamdet. So let's see. Let's try and get this off. Now, remember where your dot is. On this one, the dot is facing down, that doesn't really help you. You got to remember something else. Like the dot, and here's another dot. That circle and the dot are kind of on the same plane here. All right, so this stuff is going to be pretty easy. It's a giant booger. And we're going to just get rid of that really gently. If you don't have any of these turtle ICs in stock, oh geez, tearing up the flex already, then in theory at least you can reball the one that you have, the one that it comes with. But you got to be super careful. And the flex, the paint on the flex just wants to come off. I was pretty proud of the last one I did. I didn't tear up any paint, but that is unlikely to happen again. Ever again. So the more of this that I can get up, really super gentle, the easier it will be for me to release the chip. All right, let's go over here. And see what we can do. So fragile. I wonder what it's really like when this is, you know, someone's brain and you're a neurosurgeon. And you know that if you fuck it up, this is not just, yeah, then you're gonna have to go get a home button from Apple. Can't really go buy a new brain. That would be a lot of pressure. Nurse, I got a bleeder. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Jessa, have you found out why no one has leaked Apple's Touch ID hardware or other information provided to Apple certified providers? Well, you can't really leak hardware that requires communication with Apple. Then, you know, that would be really easy. Like, hey, let me steal this box and I'm going to sell it. And when somebody says, oh, I'll buy it. Okay, how does it work? Okay, well, you plug it in and then you type in your password to the Apple GSX system, and then you can go ahead and program the phone. And in fact, you can't just type in your password. You have to be in proximity to where it knows that thing is supposed to be. We had somebody at the course that was going to show me the iPhone ASD2, who's Apple authorized, and I was like, oh, this will be so fun. Let's see if that thing can detect, you know, phones that have no Mason on it. Like, do they say, hey, this phone doesn't have a Mason on it? And she logged in and was like, nope, I'm too far from where it thinks I'm supposed to be, so that's not going to work. So there's, you know, it's incredibly difficult to steal something that then you have to, you know, go to the owner and be like, yeah, we want to use it as well, so if you don't mind. That's a pretty big challenge. All right. I think the far better bet is to just apply social pressure to say, hey, you know, we don't like buying devices that we don't have the authority to repair. Just like I don't like to buy a Toyota that I have to go to the dealer when I need to change the tires. That's not cool. I'm not going to buy a Toyota. So that's kind of the you know, what needs to happen here. All right. So now we're gonna pick kind of a fairly random low temperature and see if we can take off this turtle IC. So we're going to take it off and reball it, maybe, and run some jumpers under here. Like scraping plaque. Ew, gross. Yeah, wouldn't it be a whole different thing if you're smelling like reeking mouth bacteria the entire time you're doing that? That would be even worse. All right, so now we're gonna kind of try to heat this up, and I can see some heat balls coming out of those caps, so that tells me I'm hot. And this I can tell is the solder is already loose, and it's just held on there by the epoxy. So I'm going to kind of twist it. Ah, see how it likes to rip up the goddamn paint? So sad. I have to just show you back to the eBay one. Look at the eBay one. I didn't tear any of the paint. This time, that's okay, because we have to run jumpers, so we're going to need to put the green stuff on here anyway. Yeah, so that paint really doesn't like to come up. Okay, so what we can do first is maybe clean up those pads, and then we'll reball this chip. So we'll put him to the side, and I'm going to use a rare time where I'm going to use the micro pencil to flatten these pads, because I really don't want to tin up anything here that is not supposed to be tinned up. Okay, how much for a brain? A new one might be useful. I'm not sure. I think that getting a new brain is a lot like stealing the Apple Touch ID reprogrammer. You can get one, but it's really hard to use it. You can get one. We could go break into the Apple store tonight, but it would be really hard to use it. So your choice. We could break into the Apple store, break into the morgue. We can get whatever we want, but that might be all we can do. All right, so let's kind of flatten these pads a little bit. Poke, poke. Puffy pillow time. You know, this one really, like, these pads are like barely tinned at all. I can really see. I've not seen one like, I haven't really done, this is like the second or third one that I've ever seen. They are really barely tinned, which means that that original joint was probably pretty weak. Which makes me wonder if maybe this one was a turtle IC problem all along, that then got a flex tear from kind of trying multiple screens and moving that home button around a lot. Okay, now I need to make sure that the two guys that look like they're on the same flex. Wick, a pad, oh heavens, not on this. God, good Lord, that hurts my ears to even think about. All right, so let's make sure that these two guys are supposed to talk to each other. And we'll do a little life lesson on when to not try to separate bridges when they're not actually, yeah. So those guys are the same. And if we look at this, ideally the paint would have stayed down and it would come up looking just like that. But we can see those two pads right here, those guys are the same line. So they are meant to talk to each other. And you can tell that when you read the board on here. These two guys, you know, you wouldn't want to try to, you know, use braid or anything, God forbid, to try to separate those guys. They're meant to talk to each other. All of these guys, they're meant to talk to each other. They're supposed to be like that. Man, that's fragile. Okay, so that's all we're going to do there. Let's use, before the flux really gets cold and super sticky, let's see if we can clean off some alcohol. All right, looks like fun working on a flex. Do you need to keep the heat low? Yes, so I was using about 40 degrees less. That's a lot less than my normal soldering, desoldering temperature. And it may be that these flexes kind of like come in different, I don't know, like the last one I did was super straightforward. I'm like, oh man, these are going to be easy. It didn't tear up any of the paint at all. The first one I did, there was a little bit of the paint gone, and then this one, it's significant. Not that it really matters, because we'll just be covering that back up, but just kind of an observation. Because you're soldering on a flex. It's like a swinging bridge. Okay, So I'm going to be good with that. I'm going to kick off the solder ball that squeezed out of the underfilled cap. Okay, so let's put that to the side and let's see what does it take to reball the turtle IC itself. So I'm going to move this entire shebang up so that I don't have to try to de-tape that very fragile home button. All right, so this is how Jessa reballs things. Let's see how it works out. You know I don't like to reball stuff, so let's give it a whirl. All right, let's see. But I've heard a lot of like people asking about, you know, hey, how do you reball stuff? So I figured, why not do a little reball demo? All right, let's see what it takes to reball this sucker. All right, first we need to get the old solder and epoxy off of here. All right, if Chris Long was doing this repair, I could see shit flying around his shop. Oh, shit flying around his shop. All right. Pads be damned. All right. Okay, so we're gonna flatten these and get some of that epoxy off with just the iron. So let's let it beep. Get hot. Great job. So we want to have puffy pillows all the way around, and we don't want to really hit that too much with the soldering iron. You can kind of do it a little bit, but you don't want to go nuts. What is this Fahrenheit? What is Fahrenheit? I remember a Korean guy from back in grad school who would every now and then bust out with these like, what is, I remember him going, what is dang? Dang it! What is dang? It was very hard to explain what dang is. Okay, so I still have a little bit of this epoxy. Let's drill down on that and get nice and close, because I have to make it super flat. I gotta poke that off. And I think I'm gonna heat it a little bit and make it soft and want to come off. Whoa, somebody's going nuts outside. So I definitely don't want to, you know, kind of scrape the bottom of the chip. But that stuff would really interfere with the whole job. So it's got to go. This is like getting snot off of a wedding dress. This is like a drunk bride barfed all over this. Gotta clear the vomit without damaging the chip. Almost worth it to just grab a new one and not mess with this. The reason why I generally don't like reballing is because of variables. You're always introducing variables. Like, what if some of that stuff is left on there and I don't see it because it's clear? Then when I put the chip on and home button doesn't work, is it my jumpers or is it my chip? Well, if it was a new chip, I would have less variables. So eliminating variables is a huge part of troubleshooting. Okay, I'm going to say that I am okay with that. So let's grab a stencil. I don't really love how some of these pads look, but I'm going to stick with it. All right, so I'm going to get a new piece of tape. And we're going to reball this bitch. Eek. Does anyone have a pet peeve for sticky things like sticker goop? Makes me shudder. Well, then you are definitely going to not want to reball these things. All right, so reballing is all about having your favorite stencil. You gotta like find a stencil, not just a brand, but a one, like your golden stencil that you don't let anybody else use. You know, don't ever let anybody touch your stencil. All right, so this is the stencil that I like, and so I'm gonna just look around and see if I can find some kind of a chip on here where the pitch matches this, and then I'm gonna kind of overlay it by hand if I don't pick it up by accident. All right, let's see. Let's see. And stencils has to be really clean, so drop them in the ultrasonic often. Clean stencils, kind of like clean underwear. It's a lot like underwear. Try not to let other people wear your underwear. Get a kind that you really like. That stencil is a little bit dirty, but we're gonna keep on going. All right, so then you're gonna just overlay it, and it doesn't really have to be 100%. Let's see if I can kick out this little bit that I don't like. Get out, little bit. All right, fine. Okay, then what I do is I put on a beautiful purple glove, and I just put a little bit of paste on with my finger, so I don't use any of the metal tools or spatulas and shit like that. And you want, you know, I use the same old mechanic solder paste, all of this stuff. My favorite stencil and my favorite paste, we're gonna start selling an iPad rehab supply once we get our new website done. And the stencil now is stuck to my Captain tape, so I don't have to be like super careful. So I'm gonna kind of rub it in there, and then I use a paper towel. Paper towel is going to rub that off. All right, so you just want to kind of fill up those holes. All right, now the other trick to reballing is find a sweet spot on your station. That is up to you, and you want to be at significantly less airflow, like really low airflow. Significantly less airflow. And I would like to be on my regular nozzle, not my tiny nozzle. So let's see if I can switch that out. All right, and I'm gonna go with that. So here's the thing, here's where reballing messes people up. It's at this point here. If you put heat on here, especially with a high airflow, you're going, the paste is a mixture of tiny little solder spheres and flux. What does flux do when you heat it up? Every time you take a chip off, you see flux start to boil and bubble and get crazy and move around and be really vigorous. So if you let this flux do that, what's gonna happen to your solder spheres? They're going to pop up out of the stencil and go nuts. So what you need to do is have your airflow down really low, and then you gotta sneak up on your stencil and just kind of warm it up. If your eyes are looking at the little squares there, and if anybody starts getting rowdy, back away. So you want to sneak up on these guys. Let them kind of be asleep. All right, so let's see. So I'm not going to hold this down. Maybe I am. It kind of looks that looks a little high, but we'll see. All right, let's sneak up on it. Let's sneak up. I don't even know where I am. There's my nozzle. We're gonna sneak up. Shh. I can see some movement, but that's okay. As long as you don't come up out of your bedroom, then you guys can stay in there and read. As long as you're not getting rowdy. It's just like putting 6-year-olds to bed. You guys sit outside the door and watch them. There they go. Nice and beautiful. Nobody went nuts. Nobody jumped out. And everybody stayed cool. All right. You don't use wet flux because it can cause rot. Really. If you dry your paste, you can abuse it. Yes. This paste seems pretty wet, but it is pretty dried out. It's as dry as it's going to get. Okay. So now I'm going to take this off. Take off my tape from the back. So I'm going to peel off my tape. And then I need to kind of poke this chip out, and then I'm going to tighten up his balls. All right, where'd you go, bro? Where'd you go, bro? Alright, I'm going to clean off the extra on my stencil because it's my favorite stencil and I don't want anything bad to happen to it. Alright, gotta clean this off. It's a similar thing with medicines. Dry pills can last for 50 plus years and still be good. Liquid dissolved medication dissolves rather quick. Okay. Let's see. What if I lost this chip? That would be a giant drag. All right, now we got to tighten up his balls. All right, let's see how he looks. He looks beautiful. And we're going to just add some regular flux on there. Make him high and tight. All right, reflow, everybody. Tighten up. There you go, buddies. Great. Okay, so now that chip is reballed. And it's important to kind of look at it on the side and say, you know, are my balls all even? And the answer is yes, so that's totally fine. All right, Chris Long, it sounds like it's time for an underwear sponsor. What? Girl, I can make it dry. Well, my other one that I wanted, you know, I want dry paste like everybody. So the other one I just left out. Like, I think I lost the cap to it. That is dry. That is dry. But I'm happy with this. I really like this. I am entirely happy with the way that this paste, that stencil, reballing works 100% of the time, and I don't have any problems. So I'm not going to make any changes, and that's exactly how I do it. I like flux, you know, flux is essential. So I like this amount of flux, and I like kind of having the flux as sort of a towel for when you're kind of sneaking up on it, that everybody kind of has to behave, and it keeps your heat really low. All right, so let's see, what did I do with my actual project? Let's bring him on back. Okay, so now in theory that chip could go back on there, but we have to solve our original problem. Also, reballing is great because it leaves a little bit of really tacky flux. All right, actually I'm going to move this chip so that I don't lose it because we're going to have to do some more work over here. Okay, so now jumper time. Let's see if we can solve our original problem. So if you guys remember, we are trying to solve a fact that we have an open line from these guys over here that is supposed to go to this little, you know, ball 1, And then we have another open line over there that's supposed to go to this little ball 2, which is really all of that. So that's like a really nice place to put a jumper. I think. I'm not 100% sure they're supposed to talk to each other. I gotta check. I gotta do investigation. Gotta make sure. All right, so number 3, yeah, that can talk to that. Okay. So let's get some jumper wire. And let's see what's up. Soldering a shit ton of copper pipe for a boiler install. That sounds massively huge. Okay, so let's get some of this. Mark got some actual 50 gauge jumper wire that we're going to steal while he's not here. Don't tell him. Do not send him a message. Hey, Jess is using your jumper wire right now. He has bigger things to worry about. Where's the end of it, though? Let's see. There we go. Super tiny. I kind of wonder if the medium size would be better, but probably not. Soldering a chip on a flex is going to be hard enough. Okay. She's a baller. Yeah. Okay. So let's start with jumper number 1. And let's see where we want him to go. So we want him to stick right there. And we really don't care if he's actually in the pad or kind of adjacent to it. We'll put some flux there. And we'll grab the good old micro pencil and sizzle him where he belongs. All right, so I'm going to hold that down really flat. Okay. And where does he go on the other side? Let's see if we can find him a new home. Kind of tempted with this. I think I'm going to cut this to help it not like get worse. All right, let's peel up the rest of this. I mean, it could very well, through manipulation, tear some of the other traces, which would suck. All right, and let's give him a path on this other side. Let's flip those around. I also don't want it to touch anything. All right, so then this needs to come around to, let's see, lay down. I guess that's not going to work with our green goo. It's like peeling a Band-Aid. All right, bro. Now let's kind of leave this a little bit loose so it can have plenty of play to get where it's supposed to go. I'm going to lift up this sticker. And his destination is right there. So let's move that over. Just had a bad review posted for work from 3 years ago. It was really nice and extra helpful, even though. And then I got a personal email saying they're really sorry and they're going to remove. Well, that's great. I meant the other cell phone repair shop. Sorry, bro. Alright, I'm gonna have to take this more off. We're gonna have to ditch that. Chris Long, you're being targeted by the iPhone 6 gang. What's the iPhone 6 gang? Alright, so we want this to be able to lay down here, come over here, and have plenty of room to bend. I don't see that. We need to get some eyes on that joint. Carefully, carefully. Carefully, carefully. Don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up. If I did this again, I would definitely get rid of the remaining adhesive from that stupid foam. Alright, so we need a little bit more of a robust joint than that. Let's move it up for you guys. Let's move it down for you guys. That ain't cutting it. Alright, so we're going to add a little bit more heat. We're going to switch our iron to mini hot tweezers for a little extra oomph. That's a better joint. Okay, so that joint's not going anywhere. And we'll get rid of his tail. Now I think if you measured in diode mode, you're still likely to be OL on this line because it needs the chip to be sitting on there in order to have a path back to ground. So let's see. Oh, we're at 0.679 and it needs to be ultimately something like 0.4 or something. So we got some semblance of a line. It's not open line anymore, but it is also not done. Okay. Next, jumper. So our other one that we're missing is over here. And it needs to go to that number 3 spot. So let's get some more of Mark's wire. I can't even see this wire. Like I can feel it, but I don't actually see it. There it is. There he is. All right, come on, buddy. Let's make it so you guys can see that spot. And let's get this where it goes. What up, Christine? Where's the end of it? I think I'm pulling it the wrong way. Nope. Okay. Let's get a joint there with the micro pencil. All right, that's in there. Now let's see if it's long enough to go where it needs to go. So we'll kind of send it along the same path as this one so that they can go under the same UV coating. And we're going to send it around here. Let's try to give it some play and then stick it here in the end and get it to wrap around to this position. Okay, so I'm going to move this so that we can get him where he's supposed to go. And I'm going to try. Hi Jess, if you fillet the coating further up the flex, you'll find the traces go from top to bottom via some large vias. You can save yourself from removing turtle by accessing them there instead. Well, then that is not going to give us a video on how to reball turtle IC now, is it? If I hadn't intended and been like, yay, I've been like, I haven't seen any of these turtle jobs, so I've been sitting here with a big stack of, look, unopened turtle chips. So I really wanted to do my turtle today. So I was bummed when I was like, oh, it's the torn flex. So I decided to just kind of have fun with it. I wouldn't really do it this way again. I mean, it was only 2 traces, so it would have been 2 micro jumpers. But I wanted to kind of learn about turtle biology, really. And just see whether or not this would work. All right, we need a little bit more flux and a little less spooge at that spot. All right, let's see if that made a joint. Desk is getting nuts. Let's see, I'm not sure about that. Clean it off. Yikes. Chris Long has heard of Area 51. What are you guys talking about? All right. Well, this is just kind of like every now and then it's just like, hey, I wonder if this idea will work. I was talking with Ronnie is working on one today, and he also needed to kind of map some of this stuff. His does not have a tear, so he is not sure. You know, he must have some kind of a cold joint somewhere, or like a tweezer poke or something. So I was like, hey, I'll do these today. See if we can help each other out. All right, the spooge has got to go before we can get in here and do anything. These are kind of like some pretty good practice and learning repairs, because really, as long as there's not data on the phone and you feel hell bent to get it for data, the worst case scenario is that you have to go down to the Apple store and say, I fucked up, and get your customer a Apple store screen swap, and then all your button problems will be solved. Man, this lake is turning into an under the sea gelatinous goo. Gross. Whoever had the snot phobia, I can see where you're coming from. I can tell. Need some goo going. This is like a snail has had some kind of orgy on here last night. Note to self, it's very important to take that foam off and its adhesive before you begin any of this mess when it's still easy to do so. Lesson learned. All right, that's our spot now, so let's get on there. We are gonna bring this around. Hopefully it's still on there. Go there. Leave yourself plenty of room. And we will grab some mini hot tweezers then again. Burn the insulation off of that wire. And hope that it doesn't touch ground, which looks like it's mighty close to. And let's get rid of this. Still like way too much adhesive that is bothering this bit. All right, let's move it around for the best angle for this job. Where'd you go, buddy? You're way back there. Oh, I can't find it. Go back. Who thinks that this is going to be a giant waste of time? I don't know. We'll see. That's a joint. All right. Who's confused? Error 53. What? We're talking about error 53 and fixing home buttons. Oh my. It is a blast from the past. Okay. Time to get some green up in here and then solder on our chip and see our fate. So I'm going to try to get this stupid adhesive out of here. Clean up aisle 1. Okay, so now let's really investigate. Does that seem flat enough for a chip to go on top of? Let's see. All of this is just kind of super tedious tiny details. And fuzz. And last chance to pick epoxy. Still epoxy on here. I mean, separating the epoxy without, I mean, it's like the epoxy is the paint. It's all kind of lifted up around here. I did on my last China order the kind of new tool for painting the green around like NAND and CPU stuff. So I want to have a clean surface that I can paint and get rid of all of this exposed copper. Gotta be able to paint. Really wonder if I actually did anything differently on the last one I did. Like, did I go up a degree or something? I wish I had written down that exact temperature, but I didn't. All right, ready to paint. Can you not wick? Ah! Do you, if you were to wick this, it would be completely ruined. This is this is hard to see how thin. This is like trying to paint veins on a fruit fly wing. You know, wick is like getting a sledgehammer and going, can't you just clean it up like that? You know, like this is, they're very delicate. This is a piece of plastic. You're soldering on a piece of painted plastic with thin wires in it. So something like a big abrasive sandpaper wick. I mean, don't even think about that. No. God no. Hell no. Fuck no. All right. Okay. Let's get some paint. All right. So we'll do a kind of a last alcohol cleanup. All right. Error 51. What's up with error 51? So this ball on the very end is a little bit too big for me, but I think I'm gonna have to touch it. He's a little bit too tall. So I'm going to make a very dry tip and kind of withdraw some of the solder to flatten him down. Okay. Time to paint. Who still jailbreaks their phone? The only thing, what did I use to, the only thing I liked about jailbreaking was the Tether Me app and the flashlight. I do miss the flashlight. Maybe there's a way to do it and I just don't know. I had my jailbroken phone power button was flashlight. I never used power button for anything other than flashlight. I use flashlight a lot. Do you guys use flashlight constantly, like looking every day in these LCDs looking in there, and then, at night all these kids are asleep, so you're kind of tiptoeing around. Flashlight, like, love the flashlight. And I miss my jailbroken 4S because I could just go click and it would be a flashlight. How can I make, what app do I need? I've downloaded like the stupid flashlight apps, but those aren't the same. I just want a button. How do I tell the iPhone to make some button be my flashlight? Tell me. I know that you guys that really use iPhones will know. Tell me. Tell me your secrets. That's what she said. Flashlight. You mean the flashlight when you swipe up? Yeah, that's a pain in the ass. That's what I have to do now. That is, ugh. What I want is click. It's a flashlight. Yay. I want to make the lock button be the flashlight. That's what you could do with the whatever jailbroken, I don't even remember the words for those things anymore, where you could redefine what buttons do. And you could say the power button is now going to activate the flashlight. I don't want to have to like unlock a phone and no. Is there a button remapped app? Yes, that's what I want you to tell me. I want you to say, Jessa, don't you know? Silly Jessa, don't you know? All you have to do is download blah, 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 and then click blah, blah, and set up blah, blah. Tell me. Come on, you guys. While I paint. Let's do a little nail polish on the Home Flex. What do you say? Who rarely uses the flashlight? Christine, do you, how often do you use the flashlight on your phone?
Once a week, maybe.
Once a week? I use it every day, multiple times a day. It's the #1 app that I use for anything.
I'll use it if I'm walking the dog and he poops and I need to find it.
Dog poop finder light. I've never used it for that. Very interesting. Beautiful green. That I might put more on later. All right, what else do I need to do? And I think I'm going to let it be loose, since that's insulated wire. I'm going to let it be loose up there. So I'm kind of just using some of this just as if it were an epoxy to kind of keep these guys going in the direction I want them to go in. All right. Whoa, that looks like this, like a strange turtle. Okay. The stream wants you to know that if you get one of the FLIR cameras, that it's a really awesome dog poop finder, which sounds hilarious because it would be like hot, like in the snow. Can you imagine, like here, Bodie, did you poop? Yes, you did. On the neighbor's driveway. Oh, we're supposed to get an inch of snow. They won't know till spring. Come on in, buddy. Oh, yay, here we go. Jay says, good news for you, Jessa, to activate the flashlight on the phone X. Ugh, all you need to do is wink twice. Honestly, if that's true, if I can go wink, wink, and the fucking flashlight turns on, I will buy an iPhone 10. Even though I hate Apple, even though I'm never going to buy another Apple product ever, but the ability to, even in the dark, seriously, like I really can't tell if that's a troll or not. It has a reasonable chance of not actually being a total troll. I will buy an iPhone 10 just to be a flashlight. I will buy a iPhone 10 size flashlight to be a flashlight / donor board, but that would be pretty cool. In the South, Jessa, we just use duct tape to make a flashlight turn on. I know you don't use any kind of duct tape on your turtle pads. I know that. All right, I am going to put this into the UV light dude, which means I hadn't really thought this far ahead. I'm gonna carry this whole thing over there. Okay. And shove it all in there. That is a little drinky, I have to say. All right, that's gonna go out. Wow, it's super naked over here. Great time to clean off my desk. How do we turn that off? Nope. Click off. Secret entrance to Hogwarts. Yes. UV curable. Let's see. Honestly, it's that good. It shows up for an hour after the event. What are you talking about? Oh, I see. The dog poop. The dog poop stays hot for an hour for localization. All right. While we wait for that, I kind of wonder. I'm not going to use any of the eyeball killing UV lights, so forget it. Do not send me any of those. Not happening. I can remember being in grad school where we had to develop gels. So the way you learn stuff about what's going on inside cells is you chop up DNA, but all of that's invisible. It's inside these little tubes, which really just look like drops of fairy tears. And you pipette in 1 microliter of that and 2 microliters of this, and you mix it all up, and then you put it in some temperature and then another temperature, and supposedly magic happens. But you don't know if anything happened or not until the very end, where you take the theoretical drop of water and you take some of it out, you mix it with a dye, but dye doesn't really do anything to DNA, it's just food coloring. And then you load it into what's really a big piece of Jello with tiny little wells in it. So you stick it in there, and if you have magically created the piece of DNA that you think you have, then you apply electric current and it goes through the Jello. And DNA that's really short can go through individual little Jello beads fast, and big long pieces of DNA can get pulled through because they're still negatively charged, so they're heading towards the positive end, but it takes them a little bit longer, kind of excuse me through the crowd of the Jello molecules. Then you stop after a half hour or so and you have a piece of Jello, which doesn't look like anything. It's completely invisible. So either magic happened or it didn't, you don't know. But the trick is that when you mix the dye, there was a little bit of a UV fluorescent dye that will sit in between the little steps of a DNA ladder. So in theory, if you shine UV light on this piece of Jello, you will see a different series of bands, which all represent pieces of DNA of different size. So this would take you days, to be doing all this magic, and you have no idea if you're doing anything at all because it's all these little invisible drops inside tubes. And then you make this big piece of Jello, and then you walk down the hall to the UV transilluminator. And at the UV transilluminator, which is pretty much a box that is the same little high-powered UV things that everybody's using by their microscope to cure the UV shit, whereas Jess is using the nail salon one that's all in a box. Then you're supposed to put on this face shield and all of this kind of cover up because that shit's fucking dangerous. And then you stick your piece of Jello on the UV box and hit turn on. And then either, if it was a good day, you'll see little tiny pink separated bands. Magic really did happen, oh my God. And then you can take a picture, click, and now you have a picture in black and white that shows the individual size bands, and you can compare that and figure out what's going on. Or if it's a bad day, you take a picture of nothing and you have a piece of Jello that has absolutely nothing in it. And that is the nature of life science research for sure. But here's the story. If you don't put on the UV face mask and instead you just say go because fuck it, then you will have a giant sunburn and your eyes will be all fucked up, just like looking at the sun. So UV is not good for your eyes. Everybody learned that with the eclipse, and it is not something to kind of mess around with. When's the next biochemistry stream, Jessa? Ask all your biochemistry questions. I'm not a biochemist. I really don't know very much about biochemistry. I know a lot about molecular genetics of cancer. That is what I know a lot about, which means how do individual little proteins all work together? How do mutations work to cause cancer, et cetera, et cetera? I know a shit ton about that. Ask your questions about that stuff all day long. If you want to know biochemistry, which is things like, wait a minute, why does one molecule move faster than another through Jello? I do not know the answer to that stuff. What if you ended up with more DNA strands than you should have? Then you would have to figure out why. And then it would be just like word repair. Why do I have this reading in diode mode? What could it possibly be? You know, there's going to always be a reason. Shit just doesn't happen. There's always a reason. So if you have more pieces of DNA than you think, then you have to figure out, how did I get them? Something cut something else and glued it back together. How did that work? And come up with a hypothesis and then do another experiment to test that. Well, if it happened like this, then if I were to do this, I would get 2 pieces. See if you get 2 pieces. And that's how that works. The president taught me to stare at the sun. Nice. All right. Cody's lab and Thunderfoot for my science. DNA stuff is something they don't do. What? All right. My UV light is 36 watt, originally marketed towards people at nail salons. Yes, mine is as well. In iOS 11, if you tap the home button 5 times, it will call emergency services. Yee. All right. How much do you charge for a tan? Yes, it's a little extra. Jessa, how do they find ways to combat cancer if it's just our normal cells with the improper coding that doesn't tell them to stop copying? That is a fantastic question. How, and that's why it's really hard. So how do you kill normal cells? Well, they're not really that normal. They're kind of like, you know, they're bad. They're mischievous. They don't follow directions. They don't listen. You know, just like you could go to a kindergarten class, you could tell immediately if you sat down in the kindergarten, that kid's the asshole, that kid's the asshole, and the rest of them are all cool. And you would be able to find, even though they're all really similar, they would have small differences. Like, you know, what is it about the asshole kids that makes them an asshole kid? It would be something like, this kid stands up when the teacher says everyone sit down. Everyone sits down except that kid just stands up. Well, that would be a way to differentiate normal from not normal. So you could kind of come up with drugs that target things like, you know, like in the kindergarten classroom, you could send a fucking, what's that thing called? Like an axe, the scythe? Yeah, you could just like let loose some kind of a scythe that would just kind of shave off really at high velocity across the kindergarten classroom. Anybody that's sitting, follow directions, you're sitting, nothing happens to you. The asshole kid that's still standing up gets his head fucking cut off. Done. That's exactly how kind of targeted cancer drugs work. But honestly, the way most chemotherapy works is just saying, what's really good at killing shit that divides really fast? So cells that rapidly divide. And that's why other cells that are not cancerous that happen to divide really fast, like your hair, will also be targeted by things like chemotherapy. It is a bit of a blunt tool. So there you go. All right, cancer cells are not normal cells. That is true, but it is really tough, especially if you want to say, hey, immune system, recognize the cancer cells. It's not really good at that because they are too normal. Jessa, what do you know of the cancer risk related to leaded solder fumes? 0. Should we use fine extractors routinely? Yes. There's no risk of cancer from breathing in the lead. So there is a risk of occupational asthma. So it's an irritant, but it's not a mutagen. So you don't get cancer unless you mutate DNA. So the lead is a neurotoxin. Lead fucks up your brain. Lead is bad for you, but lead doesn't mutate DNA. So it's not something that is a cancer causer. How does a treatment distinguish between the two? Honestly, the way that most cancer drugs are made now is just by screening. So it's really difficult to come up with an intelligent cancer drug. And in order for it to do a really good job, it has to kill not 99.9%, 100% of cancer cells. Otherwise, you're going to die of cancer. So what cancer drug finding looks like now are people that sit around and go, what if we did this, and try to come up with kind of like these intelligent designer drugs. And that's all fantastic. Like, what if we coated nanoparticles with chemotherapy and then we made the nanoparticles attracted to this part of the cell? What about that? There's all kinds of great ideas that are out there. But really, nearly all of the cancer drugs that we routinely use come from something like this. Get out a plate of cells. Go to the jungle, dig up every fucking thing in there from every tree, every flower, every plant, and dig down 10 miles deep, get every kind of root, everything, extract all of that, and come back with a giant party pack of 1 million chemicals. Now I'll take this set of cells, drip that shit on there, and say, who fucking died? Hey, look at that. All these cells in well E10 are dead. So what was in well E10? Look at that, an extract from the yew tree. Whoa. Well, let's do an experiment then. Let's see a whole bunch of different cancers, and we drop that shit on there. Does it kill cells? Yeah, it does. Oh, that's great. Well, okay, what if we take a mouse model of some kind of tumor? Can it kill an actual tumor, not just the cells? Blah, 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 blah. And then kind of roll that forward, and that is how we largely have discovered a lot of what we use as kind of our basic workhorse chemotherapy agents. Let's see. And there ends my knowledge. I'm a chemist. The iPhone guy who brought back the audio jack will also bring back the home button. Oh, that sounds pretty fun. All right, let's see. Got it. To beat cancer, cut heads off. You heard it here first. That's right. Haha. All right. It's not the lead, it's the flux. English in chat. What? We need nanobots to kill cancer. Cancer's a tough problem. If you took something like, hey, you want to devote your life to cancer research, or do you want to devote your life to spinal cord regeneration? Well, if you were able to knit back together some tiny percent of somebody's severed spinal cord, they can get up and walk around. That's pretty awesome. If you were to kill 99% of somebody's cancer cells, they're going to die of cancer. That's tough. It's a really, really difficult problem. All right, let's see. Let's see what's up with this. Okay. Poor Jessa is frozen. Chat's the only thing that's working. And now Jessa is gone. All right, this probably could use more time in there, but Oh shit, I have no idea what happened to my reball chip. Yay, there it is, stuck to the edge of that thing. Woo, that was close. All right, let's see. What does this look like? All right, well, we can probably solder on that. It needs a little bit more time. All right, who remembers? Back for a minute, I don't know what. Who remembers where the dot is? Where does the dot go? See, this is why that, like, oh yeah, dot goes down. Like, that stuff doesn't work. Remember, we said the dot is by the other dot, the circle. All right, so that's how we know our orientation. So let's just get this finished up because I am running out of patience. All right, so we've got a little bit of flux on there already. And we're gonna line it up like that. And we're gonna put a little bit of flux on here. Not a lot of bit of flux, just a little bit of flux. Now it's hard to solder on a flex. This shit's gonna want to boogie. So I am gonna hold it down. Okay, so let's see. Jessa, with a new therapy that allows the rebonding of spinal cord tissue, do you think the brain could remap all the pathways? Or would it be a big clusterfuck? I think the brain is an amazingly resilient. It really is. I don't think it can start over, but it can. I mean, it is absolutely amazing how the brain can adapt. All right, so let's see. What do we want to do here? I'm going to go back to my tiny nozzle to not bother other things. And I think we'll go up a little bit on the speed. A little bit more than reball, just kind of guessing. All right. So for this, I am gonna hold this chip down a little bit. So it's really high on this one side. That is like way too high. I don't really think he's off by a whole row, but he could be. That's way too juicy. He shouldn't be able to move that much. There's undoubtedly a clusterfuck under there. That is probably the worst chip I've ever soldered. All right, let's look. Yeah, that's definitely the worst chip I've ever soldered. Look at that. That is a giant hashtag fail. Oh, awful. So something is keeping him high, and I don't really know what it is, but let's see. It probably means there's a piece of junk under there. All right, let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that, because I kind of do want to know the answer to this. And I think I will just be, stop chatting and get this done. All right. Captain Picard. All right, let's get this done. Alright, so something is keeping it high. Let's see, what is it? What is making this chip not be able to sit? Does it need more room over there? I don't think it needs more room over here. I think it needs more room over there. That is going to have to get a lot flatter. Okay, we got to make this flat or else this chip won't be able to sit down. And I am no longer 100% sure of my continuity on that other line. So let's check on that. Because this is getting too boring now. Nobody likes like ridiculously long repairs. Nope. Quiet, all quiet in there. Gotta make it work. Okay, dug it out a little bit. Let's see. What do you need to be able to sit down? You let too much of that stuff rain down on this side. Too thick. All right. Yay, I'm gonna just grab one of my new ones rather than go through a reball. And let's see what happens. Be a drag if these were the wrong chip. Looks okay. Alrighty. Is that wire touching the other pad there? I don't think anything's touching anything it's not supposed to be, but I could be wrong. Alright, let's make sure that flowed. All right, that chip's on there. So let's let her cool down. Seems a little squishy on those balls, but they are making contact. All right, so let's go back and check in diode mode and see if we have anything different or if we've messed up more stuff. All right, so let's compare to our minute 1 map and see what the result is. So I have my original diode mode map of the connector. Now let's see if we have any changes. All right. Or if all we've managed to accomplish was further tearing up the little tear that it started out with. All right, so that's ground, and this is a match, 0.4, 0.4, 0.4, 0.6, that's a match. 0.375, that's a match. 0.7, that's a match. And 0.479, that's a match. Yay, so we do have a match now. This was, oh, you guys can't see that at all. God damn it. All right, so I just went down the connector here, red probe and ground, and I'm matching our original number. So match, 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 that now matches original. And then, let's see, what was this? 0.621, yep, so that was 0.644, 0.725, 0.751. Now this is now 0.465, and it was 0.479 on our known good. Yay! So that means we now have things back to normal, at least in theory, on that side. And now let's see if we've messed anything up on this side. So let's see, this is 0.7, these all are 0.7, that's 0.7, and then the next one is 0.6, and it is 0.6. The next one should be, I think the other three should be like 0.4, 0.46, 0.46, 0.46, yay! So this one used to be open line, and now it's 0.46. All right, so far, that now matches the normal home button reading. Now, I don't know whether or not we have bridged or messed anything else up, but it's definitely time to test because this is getting too long for me to sit here and work on any one device. So let's test and see, finally, the big moment of truth. Did we fix a goddamn thing? Let's find out. All right, so we're gonna really gently get this home button back home. Super gentle. Gentle, gentle. All right. And let's get him attached. Turn around, bro. Okay, now here's the hard part. You go there. You lay down really nicely. Don't hurt yourself. You're gonna go there, and you, in theory, are gonna fit on here still. Do ya? You might not like it as much as you used to. All right. Test, test, test. And either way, it is time to go home. All right, so I'm going to connect the stupid front camera flex just to make it not take forever to boot. And it would be such a drag if I ended up like breaking this screen. I think this is the only 7 Plus screen that is here right now. All right, and now let's see what happens. So far, we have an Apple logo. That is a great start. So let's see. Easy does it. Drum roll. All right, these are diode mode tests. Come on, you can do it. Boot, motherfucker, boot. You can do it. All right, he slimed me. All right, let's see. UV mask. Okay. I see the home button thing there. All right, let's see. Press home to unlock. Oh! It worked! Oh my god, yay! And oh, wow, look at that. You kind of like green screen itself. All right, let's see. Yes, I felt the like unmistakable electricity jolt of the iPhone 7 home button working. Yay, awesome. All right, and I'm not getting a message. Oh my god, yay, look at that. Hey, let's say Siri. Hi Siri, did you miss me? I'm your home button. How are you? I missed you. All right. Siri wants me to connect to the internet. Siri can suck my dick. All right, so that's cool. Let's see if fingerprint sensor still works. Yay, it's like so satisfying. Like click, click. Can you hear that? I'm gonna do it by the, listen, quiet. Do you hear that? I don't think you guys can hear that. It's like so satisfying. It's all perfect. It's not like all janky and shit. Okay, let's see if fingerprint sensor still works. Oh wait, what is the, let's see. Add a fingerprint. Oh my god, fingerprint sensor still works. So it's letting me do a fingerprint. All right, let's get out of that. Cancel, watch this. I'm just gonna go away from that. I'm gonna open something. I'm gonna open it and then I'm gonna close it. I just wanna sit here for like an hour just pressing this home button. It's just so magical. I don't think I can get an iPhone X even if it has a flashlight because I would miss the home button. All right, so I wanna see if I can lock and does it still let me open with the fingerprint? Isn't this the finger that I did? So fingerprint works and home button works. Yay! And that is the incredibly long way to do what could have been accomplished with a 2-jumper tracer pair. But now you guys know a little bit more about Turtle IC, about diode mode mapping in general to solve any problem, and how you can do creative stuff so that you can solve problems with, in multiple different ways. So this could have been solved with really, really detailed tracer pair, but I don't like how those traces would have had to bend, and that's kind of not cool. I will go back and kind of cover that chip with epoxy and kind of, cover this up and make it more secure. But I think that this, if I kind of maybe even put a little Captain tape on top so that it's clear to the next guy changing the home button that there's been a repair here, I think that this could be a robust button. So I don't see any reason why, everything looked really secure, soldered joints and plenty of green stuff. So I'm happy with that. And you even got to see an iPad rehab reballing demo. So that is it. Let's see. I totally understand how ecstatic you are. Yes, exactly. Michael says, wow, 5 minutes ago I thought there was no chance. Thanks, Michael. Thanks. Yeah, all right. Okay. I thought it couldn't be done. No, of course. There you go. Okay, so there you go. And that is fixed and working. And now you know all about turtle IC. And I want to see you guys in the forums. Not calling it U2 or U10 or any of those. No use. It is turtle IC repair for the win. All right. I will see you guys next time.